Welcome to the Yoga Nation, the Spirit of Gratitude podcast on the One Integration platform. Hello, friends. My name is Yogesh Patel, and this podcast focuses on bullying, self-awareness, and our inner spirit, inviting high-profile guests to share their experiences on these topics. And my next guest is Danny Bader. Based in Philadelphia, he is a best-selling author, as well as one of the most sought-after inspirational speakers here in the U.S. Reason why he's not only a motivational speaker is that Danny is the sole survivor of a very tragic electrocution accident that claimed the life of his friend and momentarily his own. Against all odds, Danny came back to life, but his journey was far from over. He was left to grapple with immense guilt, fear, and regret. However, Danny transformed his tragedy into a very powerful story around resiliency and overcoming adversity. With gratitude, welcome to the podcast, Danny.
Thank you, Yogi. With gratitude, great to be here with you.
Well, Danny, take us back to that fateful day. And how old were you?
Yeah, I was 28, almost 29 years of age, and I was working with two brothers that had a roofing company. And the one brother, Bruce, and I were getting ready to lower a metal ladder at the end of the day. And we saw the electric lines, and I said to him, because I had kind of a feeling like, this is not good. And I said, are we clear of the wires? And he said, yes, we did it this way this morning. He and his other brother set it up. So tragically, we hit the wires by about 2 inches was the margin of error over a 28-foot ladder. And about 8,000 volts of electricity, Yogi, came down and went into me and Bruce. It went in my hands, and then I had holes in my feet and my socks and my boots. And it killed Bruce and it killed me. According to an eyewitness, I was dead probably 6, 7, 8 minutes in that neighborhood of time. And then I came back to life, and Bruce didn't. So I lost a really good friend that day, great father, great husband. And as I said, he was the brother of the other brother. The two of them owned the roofing company together. So yeah, that's what happened.
Oh my goodness. Just listening to that makes my heart sink. Did you recall the experience being clinically dead for those 6 to 7 minutes?
Yes, I do, and I will always remember it. When the electricity hit me, I had an absolute surge. I felt that surge, and I had an absolute calm and an absolute peace. It was the hardest part of the book to write because I was trying to describe in our English language an event that is not describable in the English language. So as soon as I had that, I had that calm and that peace, and I could see Stu. He was the other brother, so Bruce is the one that passed. Stu was up on the roof finishing up for the day. So I guess when he heard it, he started to come down the ladder. And I saw him and I was yelling to him, Stewie, get Bruce. Stewie, get Bruce. I wasn't yelling, help me, save me, or whatever. You'll understand why in a moment. And then as I was yelling to him to get your brother, I just felt my soul, my spirit just leave my body. It was as if a part of me, an essence of me, just was pulled away from the physical scene. I saw it briefly and then I was gone. I didn't hover over my body or anything like that. And then I was joined with what I believe to be the energy, the source of love, God. People may have another name for it. It's just that bigger thing than us. And I reflected, on my life very, very quickly. And then I asked this energy, this source, and it wasn't physical. It wasn't an old man with a gray beard sitting in a big stone chair. It was just this connection and this cosmic communication. I said to God, because I felt like I had a choice to stay or come back. And I said, what about my mom? And what about Lisa, who was my girlfriend then and my wife now of 31 years? And as soon as I expressed that love and concern for them, then I was back in my body. And I didn't open my eyes because they never closed, but I'm laying there and I'm spread eagle on my back, and I feel as though I'm in fetal position. So I hear Stu, maybe 15, 20 feet away. He's trying to revive his brother. He's Bruce. So my motor skills I don't have right now because I was all pins and needles from the electric. I get my motor skills back and I crawl, Yogi, about 15 or 20 feet. Stewie's got his back to me. He's on his hands and knees doing CPR on his brother. And I crawl up next to him and he said, how are you here? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. So I started to do mouth to mouth. Bruce's eyes rolled back, and Stewie was doing chest. And then the paramedics got there and the police, and I looked reasonably fine. So they moved us away, and then Stu came over to me. I'd taken my socks and boots off and saw my holes. And Stu came over and, he said, what happened? And I said, I guess we hit the wire. And he said, oh, you did. I heard it. And here's the part which confirms for me what happened. I said, I know, I was yelling to you. I saw you coming down the ladder. I was yelling to you to get your brother. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, Stewie, I saw you. I was yelling to you to get Bruce. And he looked at me. He said, no. He said, you didn't say anything. He said, I came to you first, rolled you over from fetal position, eyes all rolled back, foam on your mouth, no heart rate, no respiration. He said, I worked on you for a few minutes. And then I thought we killed Dan. It wasn't working. So then he ran across the street and called 911 and then ran back past me to his brother. And then that's when I crawled up.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. Powerful, powerful experience for sure.
Well, I'm curious, what's been the journey like from that day to who you are today?
Yeah, it was dark for a long time. You know, I had a lot of fear and a lot of guilt and anxiety and blame and regret and all those things. So I got married about a year.
Blame on who, though?
What's that?
Blame on who?
On me, because I thought it was my fault that his kids, you know, I had 3 beautiful young kids, you know, and I should have just stopped and said, I think we're going to be close. Let's do it a different way. And just when you're involved in that situation, you're always second guessing. And, you know, I was single with no kids. So I'm thinking, why did he die and not me? So just went through all those kinds of things. And, you know, I drank for too long, too much for all the wrong reasons. And I got married to Lisa, and we have 3 beautiful kids now. So I got married less than a year after the accident. And then we had Luke a year after getting married. So all these huge life events were taking place, and I was still kind of a shell of myself. I was still, you know, suicidal thoughts were not as strong, although they still lingered. And yeah, it just took some time for it to come back. My relationship with God was always one. You know, I was raised Catholic. I still practice Catholic. Jesus is my guy. But, you know, when you're raised in the 60s and 70s in the Catholic faith, it's, you know, it's one of fear, you know, be good or God's going to get you. And, you know, part of me, you know, thought, well, what did I do wrong to deserve this? What did Bruce do wrong? And then the growth that came out of that is realize we did nothing wrong. You know, we're just humans, and we made a tragic error in, you know, measurement and distance. And, you know, God's not necessarily here to control the world. He's here to protect us sometimes. And then as St. Francis de Sales says, he gives us the unfailing strength to bear it. So when I started the shift there and I got stronger in my relationship with God, it became more of a friend. Like, hey, man, help me get better here, God. That was really the growth that came out of it. And then I think, you know, I always had a decent perspective on life, a positive perspective, and it certainly intensified as I got older.
How long did that take, though, in terms of when you had those moments of, again, fear, doubt, guilt, to the resiliency?
I'll bet they lingered 8-10 years probably.
That long?
Yeah, I had a couple jobs. You know, I was in and out of jobs. I don't know how to say, I just couldn't get myself right.
Was there an aha moment?
There was probably an aha moment I know there was an aha moment that kept me from taking my life. And that was about, July, August, September. That was about 4 months after the accident. I went to the Outer Banks, and I was just going to drive my Jeep onto the beach and put the hose in the tailpipe and the hose in the window and just asphyxiate myself. And I didn't buy the hose that day because this little lady showed up, and I believe she was an angel. She was about 5 feet tall, probably, blue eyes, bright smile. And she just said something. And I thought, man, what am I doing? I can't buy a hose. So I went out and got drunk. And then I'm walking back to my motel, and I see a phone booth. And I go in, I call my mom. And she says to me, when are you coming home? We can't wait to see you. And when I walked out, Yogi, that's when it started to shift. That's when I said, all right, I got it. What's it going to be like when I get through this? Although, like I said, it took, you know, a couple of years. I was better, but some of that residue lingered, man. It was crazy.
You talked about in our planning call the 5 parts of resiliency. I think that did help you overcome. What is that?
Yeah, so I think resilience is the ability for us to withstand and move through challenges and setbacks and difficulty. And it's something I've been speaking about a whole lot. And I think resilience is not a thing that you access when tragedy strikes. Resilience is something that you have all the time. You know, it's a mindset. There are certain principles that will help you build that reservoir of resilience, that strength, that trust in yourself, that trust in others, so that when something does show up, sure, it's going to knock you off track a little, and then you can get through it. So I think what's really important is to have the mindset and just know that you are a resilient human being. And if you need proof, just look around in today and the history of all the people that have survived tragic experiences in life. So if they can, you can. Then I think it's really important to see the other side, to kind of focus on what's it going to be like when I get better? What's it going to be like when I move through this? A lot of times my kids growing up, they would be in a challenge and they would say, Dad, this sucks. And I would say, yes, it does. What's it going to be like when it doesn't? And that helps them to shift to the other side. And then I think it's really important to love. I say, love your people fiercely and let them love you. I had a lot of people, Yogi, around to help me out of this accident. And man, I just did not let them in because I was judgmental. They don't know what I'm going through. They said something stupid. And how could they know what I went through? So a lot of times when people are suffering and they don't let people in, they go, oh, they don't know what I'm going through. Of course they don't, but they're showing up, man. And just let their spirit connect with your spirit. And I think that's a pretty good thing. And then you got to embrace the struggle. You got to embrace the facts of what's happening. I think that's a powerful principle. You surrender to them, not out of weakness, but you surrender to them out of strength. It says, okay, this is it. And I have no control over what happened. And I have no control over where I am right now. I've only got control over how and who I can move forward with. And then I think it's really important to connect with our fourth energy, which I call the spirit. And it's in addition. I think your heart and your brain and your lungs make your body go, but there's a fourth energy, and that's why my body stopped, because it left. My spirit went. So if you think about it, my heart didn't leave my body, my brain didn't leave my body, my lungs didn't leave my body, yet my body died and laid on the ground. And the spirit's that source of energy. So I think there's a couple principles there, on a higher level that we all should practice and connect with.
Well, Danny, I don't know why I'm actually shedding a tear as you speak, because I think what triggered my emotion in what you just shared was not being judgmental. And I think that's prevalent too much in society today. Whether you're old or young, whatever political spectrum you believe in, it doesn't matter. I think you mentioned that we're all connected by this spiritual tissue. And, you mentioned also the concept of Moai, the Japanese concept. So could you elaborate educate the citizens of Yoga Nation on how this relates?
Yeah, the Moai, MOAI. It's a really cool concept that I came across. A guy named Dan Buettner founded an initiative called Blue Zones, where he wanted to go around the world and see where were the healthiest and happiest people. And he came across this Japanese culture in Okinawa, Japan, called a Moai, where when little children are born, the parents will put them into a group, very, very small children. And that's it. That's their Moai. And it means meeting for a common purpose. And the purpose is really to support one another through life, socially, physically, financially, spiritually, any way that you can support one another. And it's a really powerful concept. So when I speak, I talk about that, that you all have, and I'm not so attached to the number, right? I think in Japan, they do 5 kids. It's just that you have that group of people that you love and they love you fiercely.
How does it work with young adults and adolescents with everything that you just shared?
Well, I think you really have to slow them down. And I think sometimes it's just time, Yogi. Young people don't understand the importance of love and the relationships. I've seen my kids, Luke, Joey, and Lizzie, beautiful kids. Our relationship has grown stronger now as they're 30, 28, and 24. We always loved one another, but they just get busy in life, and sometimes we come at things differently. So we turn into very bizarre creatures for a few years. And then it seems like we circle back. When I work with young people, though, and oftentimes it'll be a friend of mine that'll say, hey, a friend of mine yesterday just said, can you talk to so-and-so? He dropped out of college 2 years ago. He lived in Aspen for a couple of years, and he's 24. He's a great kid. He's just kind of lost. I'll offer these principles to them because they have been around for a long, long time in humanity. And you don't have to be old, young, whatever. They are powerful principles to move us forward in terms of what we want to create in our life.
Well, and that's kind of the premise of this podcast itself, again, is to overcome adversity. You've certainly shared a lot. And thank you for being vulnerable, right, Danny? And being comfortable with sharing your story. Because a lot of, I think, what you had mentioned, whether you're old or young, we still go through those motions of life. It's like, not really getting a sense of purpose, not getting a sense of direction. But I'm curious, though, in the workshops and the seminars that you've done, and Danny has done a lot of great work with brands such as Merck, Lincoln Financial, the Marriott. What visualization techniques do you teach the audience members in helping them achieve their goals or anything that they wish to do in life, or just something to move forward?
Yeah, there's a couple things I do. I get them clear on their values, and then I talk to them about, okay, if you live those values this next year, what does that look like? So I get them to write.
Are values different from, I mean, I guess not our values different. How different are the values from person to person?
I would say not really different. Family shows up, relationship shows up, spirituality shows up, health shows up for people. Um, Financial, taking care of yourself financially and career. They're usually the ones that show up. And then, you get some other ones which are cool: fun, travel, innovation, curiosity. But mostly the core is, it's the family, the relationships, your own personal health, and then kind of career.
Anyone that starts podcasting like you and I?
Yeah, exactly. But then what you do with the values, and it's so curious. I'll do a workshop this week with a company called Wawa back here on the East Coast and down in Florida. They've got about 11 or 1,200 convenience stores, a tremendous company, great culture. But it's amazing when I put them into the values exercise and I put all the values up on the screen and I say, okay, choose 10 of these that work for you. And then I'll say, okay, cross off 2 or 3. They get all irritated. But I'm like, come on, man. When was the last time you looked at the list of values and you have them? Now you're getting mad at me because I'm telling you to scratch off 2. And then I get them to scratch off 3 more down to 5. Now they're really violent. And I say, look, if they're really your 10 values, each day, aren't you kind of crossing some off because you're not aware, you're not focused, you're not engaging with them? So what I work to do is we put the values into a Friday event in their calendar. Then I have them based on what their values are. I say, okay, if you live into those values this year, when you do, write that story out. If I see you in December and we're grabbing a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever, and I say, Yog, how was your year? And you go, Danny, it was fantastic. And I ask why, you're going to tell me the whole story with Amy and the girls and Yog Nation and travel and fun and your health and your finances and everything. So the point is, why don't you write that out in past tense so that there's always that gap to say, wait, I'm reading this like it's done, but it's not. So what do I have to do? Where does the action come in? And that's a real powerful exercise. I love doing that one. I've been doing it for years. And the other one that I do, you and I spoke about, which is taking that down more to a daily one. And I did it this morning. I think that the most important 35 minutes of your week are the first 5 of each day when you open your eyes and you come back to life, even before you get out of bed. So I have something called my 35, and I encourage people to think of a word or an acronym that will trigger them to go through a mental thought process to put them in a really good place for the day. So, and you can change it from time to time based on what's going on. For me, mine now is SVMA. The V is for vision. So I think about the big picture. So here we are in October as we listen to this, do this podcast. In January, I wrote my whole year out. So now I'm still thinking, okay, what do I still need to focus on for the next couple of months that's not finished? Then the M is mindset. So I go up here to make sure that I'm holding real positive, useful thoughts. And then the A is for action, which is, okay, what actions must I take today? And one is I'm going to see my mom and dad, although my mom now is out with my sister. So I called my dad and he ordered French onion soup and chicken fingers. So I got to stop, pick that up and drop it off at 4:00. The S, that was the first one that people listening may go, wait, you forgot that. The S is for spirit. I merely lay in bed, I take a few breaths, and I realize that there is an energy, a divine energy, a piece of God inside of me. I'm not God, although I've got some God in me, which is puts me in a pretty good place.
Well, we all have God in every one of us. That's what I like to believe in. I guess the 35 minutes, to me, how I interpret it as the first 3 minutes are the most critical. And that to me is what you believe in the first thing you wake up in the morning. I am, I shall be, I wish to be, ... Where does that factor in though?
Well, I think it's powerful. And if that's what works for you in the morning, what I work to do, Yogi, is to get people. I said, man, when you wake up and you come back to life, What is your ritual? What is your habit that just makes sure that you're ready to put your feet on the floor as the best version of yourself, whether you're in a really good period of your life or whether you're in a huge struggle or setback? Because most people wake up, lean over, probably complain about having to wake up, grab their phone and pour some coffee. And I love coffee too, but that's after I kind of go through a little process to get me right.
So if 3 minutes is the self-affirmations, what's the 30 minutes? Is that just putting focus into what you want to accomplish that day? I'm just trying to understand a blueprint.
Well, the 35 minutes, okay, yeah, maybe I wasn't clear. The 35 minutes is 5 minutes of all 7 days.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. I'm sorry. I thought it was 5 minutes, right, of mindfulness, and then 30 minutes to say what most important task do I want to accomplish for that day.
No, I'm sorry. I wasn't clear on that. But sometimes and it's cool too, because sometimes in workshops, people go, okay, yeah, I really like this, but I think I'll probably only need 3 minutes. I'm like, okay, great. Well, you got your 21 then. You know, if you have 4 minutes, you got a 28. It doesn't matter. See, you got to, sometimes people get so fixated on the model versus what the model's intended to do, right? I try to keep mine real simple and just say the intention behind this is this. So if you want to adopt mine, you want to edit mine, you want to create your own, that's great. Just what's your intention?
Have you ever stood up to a friend that has been bullied?
Yeah, I have certainly stood up to people over the years. I don't know that I can think back to grade school with some kids, but then I can think too, and on social media, it was probably only a year and a half ago that a girl from a grade school, sent me a message and said, hey, I like what you're doing now, but you bullied me in grade school, you and this other guy. And I thought back and I thought we probably did, man. Not probably did, I just made fun of her or whatever. And as I thought of it, I remembered it, and it never felt good to do that deep in my heart. I was just too weak. I wanted to be accepted by these other guys or whatever, so I went along with it. So I apologized in the message to her, and thankfully she forgave me for it. And she said, I appreciate your books and I appreciate what you're doing. And I said, well, I love you and I'm sorry for that. And I wish you all the best.
The book, the blue book, that's I'm not sure if this will make the final cut, but has the word Jesus. And I believe the title of the book is called I Met Jesus for Miller Lite. What's that about?
That is about a young man named Michael who is a very good running back in college and then makes it to the NFL and then starts to get several concussions. And so then teams are like, hey, he's great, but he gets hurt too much, so nobody's picking him up. And he was very type A. He had a plan. I'm going to play, 10 or 12 years. Then I got my financial thing. And so now his world's just kind of turned upside down. And he's got some other friends, his real good friend, his young wife, they're just married. She has cancer. And his other friend, Susan, lost her dad in a tragic accident. And she's just drinking and drugs and sleeping with everybody. And it's just a group of people that are working to deal with life. And this guy shows up in Michael's life, and he drives a convertible Camaro. He has an iPhone. He wears a New Orleans Saints hat. His name is Jay. I was very creative in renaming Jesus, Yogi. And the story is Michael just befriends him and realizes it. So what I really wanted to do was just get Jesus's message out there again. And maybe what's a cool, simple little story. It's certainly not.
Yeah, and it's a great book. It's a great book. I'm rereading it again just because I think some of the principles apply to my own life and where I'm at in my own stage. So, Danny, this was an amazing podcast segment. Certainly a lot that I've learned, the goosebumps aside, just the tears from what you shared earlier. Thank you for your time, Danny, and best of luck to you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I love you, and I'm glad our paths crossed so many years ago.
Thanks for your time, Danny.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I love you, brother. Thanks.
Take care.